So cortisol, I test cortisol in absolutely everybody because it's a switch that if you get that right, you get everything else right. Of course, we mentioned testosterone. And another one is oxytocin. That's your cuddle hormone,
Yes.
This is why one of the tricks is you've got to get in the mood. You've got to have, women need a lot of foreplay. Men, remember, it's on, off, and you almost have to ask for it, a little bit first. Kiss, just have your husband or your spouse or whoever or your significant other stroke you, and it gets that oxytocin going, and it puts you in the mood, and it creates bonds. It really does.
This is Dr. Talks.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Dr. Betsy Greenleaf, and this is another amazing session of the Solving Sexual Dysfunction Summit. And I'm very excited that we are going to be talking here with Dr. Lorraine Maita, and this is just going to be an awesome session. So thank you, Dr. Lorraine, for being with us today.
I'm so happy to be here. So many people suffer from this.
Yeah, let me tell you, there are times I'm like, I think I'm having a midlife crisis, but so you're saying midlife crisis is hormonal. So I'm picturing like the men that all of a sudden like go out and buy the Corvettes and the fancy cars.
Well, it's not just the men, and it's the women. And
yeah,
surprisingly, a lot of men find me for their wives, especially when they're perimenopausal. So the couple comes in and the husband said, she's wonderful. I love her, but her personality changed. And, they sit together, and then I describe what I generally see, and not that it's them, not that it's everybody, but I say, in midlife, women get more irritable. They don't sleep. They're sort of snappy, and they're in your face like, and then both of them are like, and the women say that to me. They say, I don't know. That just came out of my mouth. I didn't mean to say that. And then I feel guilty. I'm irritable and I'm tired, and I did something or said something, and I'm like, oh, I feel really bad now. So they're both nodding their head. So I don't know if anybody out there feels the same way, because I've been doing this for over 30 years, right? And then the men, I say, well, the men, they don't have the wild hormonal swings that women have. Their hormones kind of decline, and they're like, I just don't have that oomph anymore. And that's when they go out and they buy the Corvette, or they, sometimes they have an affair, or they'll go to the gym and pump up, but their hormones decline, makes them withdraw. The woman's is in your face, and it's pulling the relationships apart. And when I describe this, and it's not everyone, I get all the head nods. And this has happened hundreds, if not thousands of times, so that when I fix the woman, I also try to fix the men, so that I've had people come together and say, oh my God, it's made us closer. I feel like myself again. I got my life back.
that is amazing. And I know, because a lot of times we're just like, oh, this is just what it's like, or we're blaming the relationship on, these snippy attacks. Or you're just like, all right, you know what? That's how it is. I'm getting older. Let's just accept it.
There's no need to accept it. These hormone changes are going to happen regardless, but suffering is optional. It's totally optional, because, I see the transformations every single day. And, when women in perimenopause, it's a little, they're different, because they're like in a rowboat in rough seas without oars, and they're bounced all over the place. The hormones are going all over the place. Their moods are going all over the place. And, I know with myself, when I used to walk into the office, people would just like, they duck, they'd hide.
Like the parting of the
like,
seas. Everyone's like,
like the Red Sea. And they say, I don't know what mood she's in, but even though like I always chose my words carefully, I always did the right thing, there's always a certain tone, because when you haven't slept and you're tired and you're irritable, nothing comes out right, right? So I know in perimenopause, women feel so much calmer and so much better with a little bit of progesterone. And menopause, women describe it's like somebody pulled the plug and my energy drained and the world went from color to black and white and everything is blah, this dull gray. I just don't feel like myself. And you know what? It doesn't have to be that way. With men, it's like the grumpy old men, syndrome. They also get irritable, but in a somewhat different way.
I was thinking, I'm laughing because I was thinking about this, and you don't realize how true this is until like I recently went off my hormones because I was having a procedure and my doctor wanted me to be off the hormones, which doesn't make sense, but that's a whole nother story. But I didn't even realize, like, all of a sudden I was like, it's like bitchy Betsy was back. And I was like, like my husband and the kid, and definitely sex was out the window. Like that, I was too angry and too tired and too cranky to think about like trying to develop my relationship or even have sex.
Yeah. And hormones are very potent neuromodulators. They really work on the brain. So it's, and I never forgot this slide that was shown to me when I first started learning about hormones. They show a slide with men's hormones on, off, simple, right? They're either, their testosterone's up or it's down, easy, right? Women, it's like an airplane cockpit. We have birth, we have pregnancy, we have perimenopause, we have menopause, we have PMS. It's all these bells and whistles and all these dials that it's so complicated. And that's why men's sex drive, they could be half dead and have a sex drive. And women, I say, if you're stressed, if you're tired, if you have any anger or resentment, the first thing that goes is your sex drive. I don't know if you've seen that in your practice.
Oh, yeah.
I see it all the time. And I remember a story where someone said to me, Dr. Maita, I came to you because of no sex drive. Everything else is better. I lost weight. I feel energetic. I'm happy. But I just don't have the sex drive. So we had the heart to heart. I said, is there, my relationship is good. I love my husband. It doesn't have to do with love. Over time, I planted the seed because I can't figure it out. I'm not in your house with you. Right. And she finally came to the conclusion. She said, I am angry and resentful towards him. He travels a lot. And when he comes home, he's too tired and he doesn't pay any attention to me. And that bothers me. So once that changed, things came back again, right? Things came back again. So, you have to kind of work through issues or let things slide over like water off a duck's back, because you hold on to things, like, oh, he didn't take the garbage out again, or, little slights, he left the toilet seat up, or, you let these little things bother you, it's definitely going to interfere with your relationships.
This is I love this message because there's so many times that people think, like, when they're having these midlife symptoms, whether it's low sex drive or it's like, hot flashes or just like feeling blah, or so many people are like, I'm here because I want hormones because the hormones are going to fix me. But yeah, it's not always just the hormones, right?
I even had a man come to me and he was, his hormones were fine. And then he went to, this special clinic, Boston, and blah, blah, blah. And they did something to him and it made his penis too hard and it wouldn't go down. Right. And it was scary. And I said, this is a medical emergency because you can strangulate it. I've seen that. They call it priapism. So, they go to any extent because they want their sex drive, but really it was some tension in their relationships. And he called me back because I had to talk him off the ledge and tell him what to do. And finally he came back and said, you were right. It was, we had some tension and we worked it out, and things are really good again. And even men have, you know, they're not as sensitive as women sometimes. Well, it depends on the man. You know, I can't make that generalization, and I can't really make that generalization about the women either. But I see this over and over again. So if this resonates with any of you, I want to give you some ideas. You are not alone. You are not alone.
Yeah, that is so important. And I'm like, so what kind of things like should we be looking into when we're hitting midlife and we're starting, like, especially when we're under, both male, female, we're getting cranky because our hormones are doing weird things and our bodies don't move and look the way they used to. And now our relationships are not the way they used to. What did I've put a lot on you? What advice would you have for people about those things?
Well, that's the typical thing that people come into me for. So it's not putting a lot on me. You unlayer it, you help people detoxify, because you know what, toxins really interfere with your hormones, and it makes everything worse, and they make you gain weight. They're called obesogens, some of them, especially herbicides, pesticides. They interfere with your hormone system, your immune system, and your nervous system. So all those things, heightened anxiety or depression and weight gain, that women are just like, I can't stand myself anymore. Help me get rid of this belly fat, right? A lot of that has to do with toxins. So, I have a whole process that I, help people detox first and decrease inflammation. Then I balance their hormones, and we teach them lifestyle, because you know what? We're all pushing ourselves. And I had this conversation with a patient the other day because she was feeling really guilty that, I sometimes I take a nap in the afternoon, and I shouldn't have to do that. Well, I said, you know what? When I was a teenager, I took a nap in the afternoon. It wasn't bad then. When I was a young adult, I did it. We're all putting some things on ourselves like, oh no, that means I'm getting old. No, you need to be rested to have sexual desire. You need to be rested to heal, to lose weight, to have energy, to have clarity, to stop these mood swings. So sleep is extremely important. And then I wanted to mention you, because, a lot of women fear sex because of vaginal dryness.
Oh, yes.
That is huge, and you can replenish the vagina with hormones. And I know that you've used some other pretty interesting things. So, I know you're going to be sharing a lot of that on the summit, but vaginal dryness is a total turnoff. It's, once you have painful sex, it's your limbic system in your brain anticipates it. And then you just tighten up, and you're tense. And how are you going to relax into orgasm and enjoying that lovely sexual act and orgasm? It's really a wonderful thing. The big O, it's important.
Yeah, and there's health benefits to having orgasm too. Yeah. It's not just for the fun.
It relieves tension. And I have a little trick that I have some of my women do, is I sometimes give testosterone vaginally, and I say, put a little dab on your G-spot, and once in a while, put a little dab on your clitoris. And you know what one of my patients said to me, because if you put it on the clitoris all the time, you'll get clitoral enlargement, But she said, oh, Dr. Maita, I get orgasm like that. And it really helps, and it keeps the vagina moist. It doesn't grow hair there, because some people who've used topical, I know I had laser hair removal on my legs, and I put topical testosterone there, and all the hair was starting to grow back. And I said, oh, I spent all that money. So I realized if you put it on the vagina, not only does it lubricate the vagina, it enhances orgasm. You don't spread it to anyone, and it won't grow hair there. So that's one of my little tricks that people really enjoy in more ways than one.
Yeah, that is great. And that's, for people to let them know, when you're coming to testosterone cream, that usually has to be purchased through a practitioner who is going to give you a prescription for a compounding pharmacy, or because unfortunately that's not one of the ones that we can get just over the counter in the United States. I don't know anywhere else if you're listening from someplace else.
Yeah, it's a controlled substance in the United States. So
Which
there's
is
a few rules to go through.
crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, it's been abused.
Yeah.
It's been abused, but it's really, women benefit from testosterone. I say, gives you a sense of self-confidence and well-being, and, it enhances your desire, but that's not the only hormone, and that's why people say, just give me testosterone. And, it's the cortisol, the stress hormone, you're, like I said, you're stressed, you're tired and wired, you're not going to be relaxed enough to have the desire and have the big O.
Right? That brings up you like hormones, because you like I said, a lot of people like come in and they think they know what hormones they should be on, and really it's not as like cookbook as that. So like the men are like come in like I need testosterone. The women come in like I need now they say testosterone. They used to not always. Now they're like I need estrogen or testosterone. But it's more than just that. So what have you found with the kind of the symphony of hormones that are out there?
Well, when the cortisol is up, your sex hormones are down. I mean, the nervous system and the hormone system, in the nervous system, you could be fight or flight, or the other side of the nervous system is rest, digest, reproduce, repair, rejuvenate, regenerate. So if this cortisol is high, it's shutting all that down, because you're running from a tiger, even though there are none. We're just constantly bombarded with stuff. And I see this a lot in men. I've actually had some men who said they didn't want testosterone, but when I saw high cortisol, brought the cortisol down, it was like the seesaw, testosterone came up and they were happy campers. And then the other side of the coin is if, you go from stressed out to burnout, if the cortisol is flatline, you can't even get out of bed. These are the people with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, and I can't get out of bed, and life is miserable, and I'm just not happy. So cortisol, I test cortisol in absolutely everybody, because it's the switch that if you get that right, you get everything else right. Of course, we mentioned testosterone. And another one is oxytocin. That's your cuddle hormone,
Yes.
This is why one of the tricks is you've got to get in the mood. You've got to women need a lot of foreplay. Men, remember, it's on, off, and you almost have to ask for it, cuddle a little bit first, kiss, just have your husband or your spouse or whoever, or your significant other stroke you, and it gets that oxytocin going, and it puts you in the mood, and it creates bonds. It really does.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because especially if people, I know I talk to my friends and myself, everybody gets in these busy schedules, and they're, they got, work or kids or, and then it gets like, it's almost like you're trying to fit the sex into the schedule too. And I like how you're like, kind of just slow down, like spend time touching, because you can't be like, okay, well, it's 9:00 and we have it on the schedule. Let's go.
But you actually do have to schedule time. Like, some people do date night, where you carve a space around that time so that you can relax, you can get in the mood. You don't have to say, oh, it's exact, this is it. Slam, bam, thank you, ma'am. I'm doing my duty here. Like a lot of women say that. It's like, I have to do it. And, and they almost, feel like it's an obligation rather than purposeful act of mutual enjoyment and mutual pleasure.
Yeah, I like that because, and I've heard that before too, especially from my female patients. And more so when Viagra actually came out, was I had more women complaining about sex when Viagra came on the market. But I don't think that is completely a male driven issue. I think it's a communication issue, because if the one partner felt like they needed to go get the Viagra, and the other partner now is upset because they're like, oh, now I have to have sex. Like, there's a lot of other things that need to be unpacked in there to get everybody on the same page.
Yes. That's why, building a relationship is extremely important, and going back to what attracted you to the person in the first place, and trying to rekindle the romance and maybe that's why date night's important. You take yourself out of your environment, you get in the mood, or sometimes, I tell people, women, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. You have to masturbate, get the juices flowing, get back on the bike, because once you start experiencing that and getting that desire, you get the desire back. And you do have to sometimes fake it till you make it, and then do things for stimulation. So it's important, because you got to retrain your body.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly, because this is definitely something, if you don't use it, you lose it. Like, I can't tell you how many times as a gynecologist I've gone into a room for a woman who, let's say, is, maybe divorced or maybe widowed and is not using her lady parts.
Yeah.
And to try to go and do an exam and not only not being able to get a speculum inside, but can't get like my pinky finger inside, or the labia have kind of like shriveled up and gone away, because the more you get stimulation to that area, whether it's with a partner or with yourself, the more blood flow, the healthier the tissue is, the easier it is to be able to get it, like use it. Here's another example. During the quarantine, I had a car. Used to drive that car all the time. During the quarantine, that car sat in my driveway. I went to go all of a sudden drive that car. I couldn't drive it. The brakes had rusted.
Oh no.
It wasn't going anywhere.
Well, I forgot how to go places, and I felt uncomfortable driving, because it was the same thing. I've been doing telehealth, and it felt strange to drive again. And a lot of women are scared. They're very scared, especially if they haven't had relations with someone in a while. Like you said, they're divorced, they're widowed, and so that's why I say practice, but also dealing with past traumas. A lot of traumas of some sort, that they had a bad experience, or, God forbid, rape, or they've had some procedure in the area, and it just triggers something. Dealing with past trauma is really important, and there are ways to do that. I know many people who help people with that.
Yeah, that's such a great point too. And it's kind of this accumulation of, I always go back to body, mind, spirit. If we don't have balance in all three areas, nothing's going to work, or things aren't going to work as well.
Right. And that's why I tell people I use the vitality formula. I add what's missing. Like, you need good nutrition to have energy, right? You need a good, healthy gut. Believe it or not, when I have people who have problems with their hormones, it's usually their gut. Or their women are missing their gallbladder, and they can't process things. So we have to deal with all of that. So if they're missing bile salts, or they're missing stuff to allow them to move their bowels, how many women are constipated and then they have side effects from their hormones because they can't get rid of the breakdown products. So so we add what's missing. We take away things like toxins. We make sure they get rest and sleep and exercise. You need the whole picture, and sex starts in the mind.
Yes.
So the whole mind, body, spirit. That's, maybe watch some romance movies, or fantasize, or visualize. Do whatever you need to do to get in the mood, because it's, if you have this feeling it's an obligation, or you have the anger and resentment, you've got to deal with it in order to get your sexual desire back. And if you've had past traumas, you have to deal with it to get your sexual desire back, because it will be a much more fulfilling life and a much closer relationship to be able to bond to somebody and meet in that act of sheer pleasure. It should be sheer pleasure.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
That's why I keep saying, like, I've had women who were like, it's not fair, men have Viagra. And I'm like, listen, Viagra's not some magic pill. It's a blood flow pill. That's all it is. Like, they can't come up with a horny pill, and nobody wait around for the horny pill because it's not coming, because you got it all up here. It's in the head, and everybody's different. So that's why there would never be a pill to put you in the mood, because everybody has something different that puts in the mood. And this is where spending time with yourself and really kind of delving into that imagination and playing. It's actually being playful to try to figure out what is it in my brain that works for me. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just testosterone, and it's, estrogen and progesterone have to be balanced. When women are like, they're in your face in perimenopause and they're anxious and irritable and snappy, like PMS, perimenopause, it's usually a lack of progesterone. And, in the younger women, I give herbals because that can help you stimulate your body. And the older women, your ovaries are retired, they're not going to make it no matter what you do. So you get progesterone. So once you get that balance, you feel good. And in menopause, you're missing both. So, estrogen's a funny thing. Too much or too little, you gain weight. And then women don't feel good about themselves. And when they don't feel good about themselves, they don't want to be seen naked. They don't want to have sex. So, we get the hormones in balance. And, you can't forget the thyroid, because thyroid is the most sensitive of all your hormonal glands, and you need it for energy, and you need energy to have sex and desire. And you need to look at all the pieces of the puzzle, and mind, body, spirit.
This is amazing. I could talk to you about this forever, Lorraine, but where can people find out more information about you?
TheFeelGoodAgainInstitute.com.
I love that name. That is awesome.
Yeah, you have to put the in front of it and institute at the back of it. Otherwise, Feel Good Again seems to be used other places, but it's TheFeelGoodAgainInstitute.com.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I want women to experience the pleasures and have their mojo back.
That is great. So everybody, stay tuned, stick around, and because we got more amazing sessions coming right up.
Thank you for tuning in to Dr. Talks. We hope today's episode has enlightened and inspired you on your path to optimal health. Each day is a new opportunity to make choices that empower your well-being. For more insights and strategies, subscribe to our podcast and visit our website, www.drtalks.com. Stay connected, stay healthy, and join us next time on Dr. Talks, real talks from real doctors on the issues that matter to you most.